Welcome back, everybody. I am so excited to have you here. And today I am super excited about the subject I want to discuss. So one of the biggest questions that I get asked as an educator, as a photographer, as somebody who travels and speaks on photography nationwide is, how did I build my clientele? And in particular, how did I build my high-end clientele base? Well, there is a lot of working parts to this, but I have compiled 4 easy tips to help you get started with building your clientele. So step number 1, let's jump right in. It's going to be your brand. Every company that we are familiar with has a brand. Whether it's a good brand or maybe not so much of a good brand, they all have a brand. What is your brand? So for me, I know exactly who I am as a photographer and as an artist, and that is easily seen through my website, my social media, through my clients themselves. You know exactly what my brand is because I have worked very hard to elevate my brand. Now, how do you go about doing that? Well, there's a lot of working pieces to that. One is going to be how you photograph. Another piece is going to be what your experience is. How is your customer service? Another working part is going to be what is the products that you offer. So for many of you, you guys have seen my IPS or my shoot and burn to an IPS sales session or photography. When you're moving from one to the other, you might have seen that YouTube video. Well, this is part of that. What type of experience do you have? Do you photograph your client and just send them off with a few digitals, or are you a full service company? All of this has to do with your brand. So when we back up just a little bit, it starts with the type of portraiture that we provide. So are you doing anything different than the rest of the world? Are you using your true creative eye to create what you want to create? Or are you just copying what's been seen through Pinterest and on Facebook and everywhere else? You have to be able to provide something new and unique and fresh. It's not really that complicated as long as you take yourself outside of the box and stop looking at places like Pinterest and Facebook. Then you can truly create something that is unique to you. And then you can start to build your brand. Step number 2 is going to be presentation, which kind of kicks right off of having a brand. Your presentation of yourself and of your company is a huge part of building your clientele, and in particular, building a higher end clientele, if that's what you're looking for. Now remember, not every photographer wants to have necessarily a higher end clientele. Some people like to photograph more volume. It all depends on who you want to be as an artist and what type of clients you want to have. In this case, for me, I'm discussing a higher end clientele. So back to presentation. How do you handle yourself on phone calls? What's the verbiage that you use? How do you explain yourself in your biography on your website? What does your headshot look like? Does it look professional, or does it look like it could have been taken with an iPhone? Presentation means so much because most people make up their mind about who you are and what you do within the first few seconds of seeing you or meeting you. So your presentation is vital. And let's think for a moment. We talked about brand just a moment ago, and whether we're thinking of a company that has a good brand or a company that's known for maybe not having such a good brand, there's still a brand out there. So let's think of just a few. Let's think of maybe a car brand, Mercedes or Lamborghini. We automatically know that that is an expensive, high-level brand. Why is that? Because of how they are presenting themselves. And now mind you, these companies weren't just born being well known. They had to build themselves. There's a reason why they have luxury put into their name. We have to do the same if we are wanting to attract higher end clientele. Now, when it comes down to presentation of yourself, you need to think about an interview. How would you go dressed if you were going to interview for a job? Certainly not sloppy. You would want to look your best. You need to always look your best when you are out networking. Anytime any one of your potential clients could see you, you always want to put your best foot forward. Clothing is a huge, huge thing that people automatically connect with. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be dripping in designer clothes. I do have a little bit of a soft spot for designer clothes myself, but I also have clothes that are maybe not necessarily designer, but they still are very clean, very well put together. Your appearance matters significantly. Now, I am a mom, and you know, well, you may not know, but there is a huge stigma out there for momtographers. But when most people meet me, they don't realize that I actually have kids. Now, there's nothing wrong with the word momtographer, but I personally did not want myself to be labeled that way. So I made sure that whenever I went anywhere, I was dressed in well-fitted clothing, nothing that had any holes. Again, as if you were going on an interview. That is how your presentation adds to your brand, which attracts the clientele that you want. Now, let's move on to step number 3. Attracting your clientele, you have to be able to market. Now, marketing is a class, a multiple day class all on its own, so I won't go too deep into that. But marketing and being able to get in front of the correct demographic that you want to reach is a huge piece to the puzzle. Marketing is so dense, but it can be so specific that it makes all the difference in the world with who you are pulling in to see your business and your brand. But how do we even know who to market to if we don't know who our clients are? Which brings me to step number 4. Know who your client is. But Karen, how in the world will I ever know who my client is? Easy. You know what you want to photograph. You know exactly who you want to photograph for, and you study them. So for me, most of my clients are in between the age of 35 to 42. A lot of my clients have struggled with IVF or not being able to conceive. So normally they may only have one child, possibly 2. If they are a bigger family, they are a higher end clientele, and they believe and want portraits for every significant moment in their life. But I know where they shop. I know what they like to eat. I have studied them so that I can be able to market to them. Now, how you know is by taking time. This is not something that you're going to figure out just like that, but you do have to be smart enough to be able to pick out who your client is and who is not. It's not enough to just say, well, I want someone who values me and what I do. Well, we all do. That's the purpose of all of this. You have to be much more specific than that, though. You need to know their likes, their dislikes, where they shop, where they don't shop, what car do they drive, what type of stroller do they use. Now, for me, because I am a maternity, motherhood, and underwater portrait photographer, I know all of the details of each of those fields. If you are a wedding photographer, do you know wedding venues? Do you know rental facilities that maybe rent chairs or china or whatever the case may be? All of these things are things that you need to know so that when it comes down to marketing for your clientele, you are able to get right in front of their eyes. We all have been on Facebook or Instagram and seen an ad that we were just talking about 3 minutes ago. Why is that? Because all of these social media devices, or all of our devices, are learning what we're interested in. We have to do the same when it comes to our clientele. So we need to know everything we can about our demographic. Where do you live? Where are your clients coming from? And the only way that you're going to be able to keep up with that is to take a note and keep track of every single client. Where they found you, who did they hear about you from, where are they coming from. The more information you can take in from that, the better off you will be when it comes to marketing to be able to get your client. Now, regardless of if you want to hire in clientele, or if you kind of want to hover in the middle, or if you want to do more volume, the process still stays the same. You still need to be able to know how to attract those clients. But for my particular case, I'm telling you how I want to attract a higher end clientele, because that is what my brand is. It is a higher level brand of photography. So again, what are those 4 steps? First is going to be your brand. And we can work on our brand in every way possible. How we answer the phone. Do you answer the phone with a smile? Thank you so much for calling Significant Moments Photography. How can I help you today? Or do you not answer the phone call at all, and do you just respond through direct messages and emails? Good questions, because I know in this digital age, customer service is falling lower and lower. So brand has so much to do with all of this. Work on that brand. Work on it. Step number 2, presentation. Make sure that you are presented in a way that you would want your clients to see you, and that's going to attract your ideal clientele. Number 3, which is a huge one, marketing. And like I said, guys, marketing could be a several-day class on its own, much too long for YouTube. But again, don't ever forget, I mentor and I specifically teach marketing. So if you ever need help, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, okay? But marketing, being able to market to your ideal client. Now, that brings us to our 4th step. Know who your client is. Regardless of if you are volume or working with only the highest end clientele that there is out there. Regardless, you still need to know who your client is. And the only way to do that is to take excellent notes of the clients that do book you so that you can learn and grow. And by being able to study their likes and their dislikes. So take those 4 steps. Build your brand, work on your presentation, build your marketing, and find who your ideal client is and study them. And then you can start to attract your ideal client. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will see you again soon.